All right. Well, thank you all for coming. My name is Sarah Selden, and I am a junior here at PVA, and I'm studying English and Secondary Education. Additionally, I'm an undergraduate writing coach in our Center for Writing Excellence, and today I'm going to talk to you about a project that we've been doing in the Center for Writing Excellence and how it pertains to service learning, which is part of PVA's Quality Enhancement Program this year. And basically what service learning is that it's taking what students are learning in the classroom and bringing it into a service atmosphere. And what we're doing in the Writing Center is a partnership with Forest Hill Community High School in their IB program, and essentially taking what we do in the Writing Center every day and bringing it into a place where people in our community need our skills and they need our help. So we're sort of modeling service learning in that program. We're not a classroom setting technically, but we are taking the same principle and applying it to what we do in the Writing Center. So get into the premise of our program. We began a partnership with Forest Hill Community High School in 2016. We already have an existing relationship with that community. It's the Parker Avenue corridor because we built our athletic campus there a few years ago, and ever since then it's been a goal of the workshop program to reach out to schools on that street and build a relationship with them because we are more physically present in their community now. So the workshop office actually reached out to the Center for Writing Excellence and asked us if there was any way we could get involved at Forest Hill Community High School. And so then we reached out to their IB coordinator, and her name is Alexa Kokotov, and established really how we could get involved in their program and help them achieve their goals. So I'll kind of talk about the demographics of Forest Hill Community High School so you can get an understanding of why we were doing what we were doing and just a better understanding of why we need to be working in schools like that. So 78% of students at Forest Hill Community High School are on the free and reduced lunch program. And a large percentage of the students that we worked with are also dreamers, which means they are students who are brought into the country as undocumented citizens, and they are attending our public schools. So that's the kind of the ethnic demographic that we're working with, just so you have an understanding. So I'll get into what their goals are. All the students we are working with are pursuing an IB diploma, and to obtain an IB diploma, they have to take 6 advanced courses, courses in 6 subject areas. 4 of those subject areas need to be in advanced courses, and they also have to complete an extended essay, which is 3,500 to 4,000 words by the end of their IB program, and they also have to do a lot of community service, which relates to our values as well. If they get this IB diploma, if they pass, that means that they'll be automatically eligible for the highest level of Florida's Bright Future Scholarship, which is $77 per credit hour for college, which really makes college accessible for a lot of these students. So it was a really big deal for them to earn this diploma, and it was really essential that they pass their extended essay in order to obtain that. So seeing as we are the Center for Writing Excellence, we focused on the extended essay of their portion of their diplomas. For the extended essay, each student had to write a 3,500 to 4,000 word paper on a topic of their choice. And all these papers had to answer a research question that they designed themselves. And most of them were phrased something like, to what extent does blank affect blank, or to what extent is this related to that? So one example of that was a student wrote a paper on to what extent was the US effective in dealing with the Syrian refugee crisis in comparison to the European Union. So she just was working on like, what did we do? What did they do? What's the difference between like geographic locations and how the responses were affected by that? And each of these students received a mentor in their subject area. So if they were writing a psychology paper, perhaps the advanced psychology teacher at Forest Hill mentored them in their subject area and helped kind of direct their research. However, they weren't really given any writing help with their paper and part of that was due to the fact that the teacher who was teaching the class that assigned this paper was also the extended essay coordinator for the school. So by IB regulation, he was not allowed to read any of the papers they wrote. They were all just kind of writing papers, didn't really have a lot of help, which is why we came in and tried to help them. So what we did, so originally our plan was to have all of the students kind of be bussed over here and participate in workshops on campus so they could kind of get a feel for what PBA is like and what being on a college campus is like. But that soon proved to be not an option because we had a few hurricanes that closed our school and closed their school. And then when we finally did have a day that they could come, they found out they lost funding for the buses, so it just wasn't going to work out. So after about 2 years of, like a year and a half of trying to figure out logistics, what we were going to do, we just decided we'll take our coaches to their classroom. So we went in every Monday afternoon last semester, and in their last period of the day, sat in the back of their classroom. And as they were kind of in the front working on their papers independently, they could come back and sit with us and participate in a sort of writing center session that we do, just like what we do in the writing center every day. Yes, so a lot of the students were hesitant to work with us at first because they didn't really know what questions they had. They didn't really have much of a paper at that point at all. Some of them had a graphic organizer and an introduction, and that was it. And in teaching writing, we often tell students, no, don't write your introductions first, write your paper first, and then you'll know how to introduce it. So a lot of them had all of their points laid out in their introduction and then didn't really have anywhere to go with the paper. So we quickly realized that there were a lot of structural issues that needed to be addressed in order for these papers to become a paper. So in order to remedy that, we actually brought our workshop that we teach here about outlining to Forest Hill, and our director, Lisa Marzano, gave the workshop just as she would here. And it was just a basic outlining workshop. Like, this is how you identify your 3 points, you put your thesis at the top, you put your conclusion at the bottom, all of that. And many of them had really not seen a paper broken down like that before, and this was really enlightened them. So they were excited about that. And something that I found was interesting in that experience was just the way they had learned writing was very different from the way the students at another school I was doing field experience at, which was a magnet school up the street, basically. There was just a really big difference in how they were learning writing, and that was just interesting for me to know. And that's not necessarily either school's fault, it's just there's differences in how writing is taught and differences in how students experience school. That feeds into that. So this workshop that we presented, though, really made students feel more comfortable with us. They really thought, wow, they know something that could help me. So then after that, they were a lot more eager to come back and sit with us and work through their papers, and that was kind of when the ball really started to roll. And something we found, a strategy we found in working with them is that a lot of the students kind of picked a coach that they liked, and they would come back to the same coach every week. So then we thought, well, why don't we break down these papers for them? And we started giving them attainable goals, like, okay, next week can you write just this section? Just really work on that section. And that really helped them see that writing is a process. They don't really need to write it all at once. You can break it down into segments that make it a lot more attainable, which helped them a lot. And obviously this program was beneficial for both the students at Forest Hill, and also it was very beneficial for us as writing coaches. Obviously, when you have help with a paper, it's going to get better, we hope. So that was one benefit. But also a lot of students started to ask about PBA specifically, and what's it like to go to school here? What kind of scholarships are available? What can I study if I went to PBA? And that just, it kind of saw lights going on about even attending college in general. For us, for writing coaches, we just were able to more deeply connect to our community and see the need for writing help at a community level, which isn't something we had really seen before. And it just showed us that our skills really do matter in a greater context. That was good for us. And we did use some specific strategies to work with these students that research supports. So one researcher, Natalie DeCheck, she's a graduate writing coach, conducted a case study about tutor-client relationships and just how if a tutor really takes initiative and interest in a client, or a student in this case, it's going to really help the papers improve. And part of the reason for that is that that relationship helps with external motivation. So if a student feels that they are that their writing coach is interested in what they're writing, they're going to feel more motivated to write it and more comfortable expressing their ideas. Because if they're meeting more often, then they feel like they don't have to explain their whole paper over and over again to a different person every time. They can kind of build off of what they've already done, and it just is a little bit more freeing for them. Yeah, so we found that a writing tutor's interest in a student's topic is really integral in making a paper successful, and we tried to model that with our students, especially as we started to work with the same ones every Monday at Forest Hill. So I think one of the things we found in this project is that writing centers could really be beneficial in a K-12 environment, but a lot don't exist. And part of the reason for that is what Greer and Tromanoff called the yeah buts of a school district. So yeah, we would really like to have a writing center, but we don't have the funding. Or yeah, that's a really good idea, but we don't even have a room in our building where we can make that a possibility. So that's kind of a tough thing to fight, but the Stanford Writing Center actually tried to combat that in the schools in their own area with a couple of projects. One was called Project Write, which involved bringing students from local high schools in the same kind of demographic as Forest Hill to their campus every Saturday morning and just doing boot camps. They were like 10-week sessions, and they found that to be really successful. They even cited one student who graduated from that program, Project Write, coming into Stanford in a few years after. So that was a success for them, and that's kind of why we originally wanted students to come here, because we saw that worked there. However, it proved to not really be feasible for our community. So they also established a project called Ravenswood Writes, where they wrote a grant and got some funding, and they actually sent some of their coaches into 3 Title I schools in their area and had a functioning writing center in each of those schools. So that proved to be successful for them, and really the only way they were able to do that, this article cited, is that they had already built relationships with those schools through their Project Write program, which is something we've seen is really important in our Forest Hill program, is having a relationship with those teachers, and now it's a lot easier to go into the schools and have more opportunities with them because we have an existing relationship. So our conclusions, we don't have any data yet over whether these students have passed their papers or not, because they submitted them actually a few weeks ago. We were there on the day. A lot of them were hitting the submit button, and that was exciting. And so those will be graded, and they'll get the results this summer. So we're hoping that because we have a relationship with them now, we can kind of look more into how effective were we, how can we be more effective, things like that in the future. We do know that the teachers were really grateful for our help. They have expressed that profusely, so that's good. Yeah, we hope that means we were successful. And other teachers in the school have invited us to do workshops in their classrooms now, so we're hoping we can continue that the rest of the semester, even though all of their papers have been turned in at this point. So we're also hoping to start earlier in the process with the next class of EE people. Hoping maybe in the end of the semester, get them to start thinking about ideas over the summer and teach them how to outline now so that when they start their papers, they're on a better trajectory. And the biggest thing we really learned is that the CWE, the Center for Writing Excellence, reaches farther than it does before. So our skills are important in a greater context, and it's just really been an encouraging process for us. So thank you, and I would like to open up to questions now. Dr. Templeton. Yes, so we are all writing coaches from the Writing Center who go to this, who go to the program, but we aren't paid for it. We receive workshop hours for it. So yeah, and we're hoping to continue in the fall, kind of go back in again and start working on the papers, kind of make this a yearly scheduled thing. Fortunately, I won't be here in the fall because I'll be studying abroad, so someone else will jump in and lead the way, but Ariana. Yes. Kevin. that would be something I'd like to see personally. We are only 30 coaches in a small Christian school, but it would be good to see how we could expand the program. And I think as a future teacher myself, it's something I've been thinking about. Like when I start teaching, can I, partner with PBA and try to establish something in my school similar and even more permanently. I'm hoping so. I think establishing that relationship, I feel comfortable asking once they get their scores back. And another interesting angle to look at was we only worked with one class of extended essay writers. So there's a class that meets in the morning and a class that meets in the afternoon. And all the kids who were in the class of the morning had 7th hour off, so they could have come and worked with us, but none of them did. So I think we could we could compare that data as well. Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, there are no other questions. Thank you very much for coming today, and